Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Damme, and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies. And today I want to tell you about 20 great horror movies you can currently watch on Amazon Prime. So this is going to be kind of a mixed list. I did rank them, but there's some hidden gems, there's some classics, there's some really scary stuff, there's some funny stuff, but all really great horror movies that horror fans are sure to love. So again, you're going to get 20 quick 1-minute movie reviews, but without further ado, let's jump into the list all the way back at number 20 with Butcher the Bakers. Now it's at number 20 for a reason. However, I really like this movie. It's a very small movie, shoestring budget, but it has got a very good sense of humor. It's got some crazy monsters in it, almost like Clive Barker kind of stuff, but with a really great sense of humor, in my opinion. But the acting's pretty bad, some of the makeup's pretty bad, the sets appear to just be wherever they were able to film. It's got a little bit of a Canadian sense of humor though, and I loved it. I think horror fans are really going to find this to be a really cool hidden gem. To me, it's one of the better picks off of this list, but I got to put it at the back because this is not for everybody. If you're not really able to watch those smaller, independent, really independent, film festival type movies, this is probably not going to be for you. Dark Was the Night is another indie movie, but this is a pretty good monster movie. Now, because it's an indie movie, there's not a huge budget. You're not going to get a lot of special effects in this one, so it really relies more heavily on a sense of dread, but it's got a really great cast, and it's kind of like a Bigfoot type of a thing. I don't want to give too much away about the creature. The creature is not Bigfoot. You know, it's not a spoiler, but it's got that type of lore about it, sort of urban legend, that's actually real type of a thing, but it's very dark and moody, and ultimately is a pretty good little indie movie, meaning that even though it could not really deliver on the special effects and the monsters very well, it makes good use of no special effects, which is really the trickier part in a horror movie. This one's a little light on horror though, so anyone looking to like get scared, I don't know that this one's going to do it. However, if you want to watch a horror movie with somebody that's a big baby that gets easily scared, this might actually be a safe bet. Now, one that I found surprisingly scary is We Are Still Here. This is a ghost story movie, a haunted house movie, one of my favorite genres, you know, within horror, and this is a good one. It's only a few years old, and again, not a lot of special effects, but they make even better use of it. Do a very good job of like creeping you out, you know, camera zooming into like a hole in the wall that's just dark on the other side. They do a very good job of making that very scary. They do a very good job of making sort of sounds and stuff scary, and not just in a like loud sounds to scare you, but just creepy. This one's very creepy, and it gets a little crazy. It gets kind of surprisingly crazy at the end. Trust me, I got some bigger budget, some more polished movies on this list. This is another really small one, but in my experience, my long experience in watching movies, this one is surprisingly good for how small it otherwise appears to be. On a similar note, The Haunting is an old school movie, you know, an old school haunted house movie, but it's PG-13, so it's not really gonna scare you. This is probably a great one for my younger viewers, but it's got an amazing cast. Liam Neeson, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Owen Wilson, and it does have the special effects. So this one has everything the other ones have lacked. Yet the other ones do a little bit better job building the dread because they don't have those special effects to rely on. However, this one is fun enough. If you never saw it, it's a pretty good recommendation. If you have seen it, you probably want to pass, but trust me, I got some great ones on here that I know you haven't seen. Now, one that barely fits into horror, but horror fans will like it, is Bad Samaritan. Now, this one's got another killer cast, no pun intended. Oh, the door just opened a little bit. And I heard a creak on the ceiling. I know I've done bits on this show before. This is not one. So I'll just be freaked out for the rest of this episode. Yeah. So Bad Samaritan. But it's about a valet who robs his clients while they're having dinner. Turns out one of them appears to be a serial killer, has someone chained up in their house, and he's a criminal. He can't really tell the police, and he gets put into this weird situation, and then things just get crazier and crazier. David Tennant, who is a lot of people's favorite Doctor Who, is the quote-unquote killer in this one, and he does a really killer job as well. So if you're a fan of his, you'll like this movie. If you like thrillers that are almost horror movies, this is a really, really great pick, and I think it just came out last year, so it's one of the newer picks off of this list. Another old school monster movie is The Relic, starring Tom Sizemore. This one is pretty cool. I remember liking it a lot when I was a teenager. However, it has been a very long time since I've seen it, but it is about a monster set loose in a museum. It sort of comes in a crate, and sort of like a xenomorph, like an alien from Alien. It's able to grow as it sort of consumes its prey. It gets larger and larger. So it does kind of feel like Alien. They're in tunnels underneath the museum at times. You don't see the monster for a long time, but ultimately you do, and it's again, big special effects. It has what some of the smaller movies lack, but it's a good monster movie. I like it, and it's got a little more action than most things on this list, so it's a little more badass in that respect as well. Starry Eyes is super creepy, but it takes a long time getting in. So if you're an impatient person, do not watch Starry Eyes. If you are patient, this one's very well done. It's very well plotted out, and it ends in ultimately gets very, very wild and creepy, but you do have to be patient. It's about a young actress who is just trying to make it, and she gets made an offer that she wants to refuse, and probably should, and then things get a little hairy from there. And again, this one is dark. The creators of this went on to do the most recent Pet Sematary. I had done a full review on that. I was not really a fan of where they went with that movie. This is a superior film in almost every sense of the word to their Pet Sematary, and that one wasn't that bad, so this one is pretty great. One of the better hidden gems off of this list. Alright, and I promised some fun ones on this list, and Killer Klowns from Outer Space is currently on Prime. Hopefully you've seen this one. This is one of the more popular horror comedies out there, and for good reason. It is funny, and it is fun, and it doesn't drag too much. The problem with movies like this one is they're low budget, they're not very good, and this one is not a very good movie, but as a result, they're not really plotted out very well, and they can kind of drag, and they just have a few good moments. Killer Klowns from Outer Space, however, is packed with amazing moments, cotton candy cocoons, shadow puppets that come to life, just all kinds of really fun, crazy stuff. It works really, really well. This is a fun one that in this house, when we have a big Halloween party, this one gets thrown up at the TV at the beginning of the night with no sound. We listen to music, but it sort of adds to the decor of the party. Probably going to cut that out, though. That's kind of dumb for me to leave that in. Right? And back to back, I've got another funny one of my favorites on the list, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I know you've heard of it. Hopefully half of you have seen it. If you have not, it is as good as it sounds like it is. It sounds like another one of those that's just like, it's a funny idea, but is the movie any good? It's good. In the sense that it continues to just go off the rails, and it just gets crazy. I mean, there's shootouts, and just, it's way more epic than you would think it could possibly be. Again, it's low budget, it's silly looking, it's about killer tomatoes. You know what you're getting with the title, yet it works really, really well. And it's a cult classic for a reason. There was a cartoon series in the 80s when I was a kid, and this is not for kids. So do not watch, really, I think, any of these with your kids, but definitely don't watch this one with your kids either. But it is a lot of fun. One that is not fun at all, and this is my number 11 pick, it's at the top of my bottom 10, is The Blackcoat's Daughter. Now, this just came out last year. It is dark. I was surprised at how dark this one got, actually. It's about a couple of girls who are stuck at a boarding school. Basically, their parents didn't come pick them up right at the beginning of winter break, and weird things start to happen. There's stories of satanic rituals going on, and there's a whole side story about another girl that kind of gets crazy. The reason this one's not higher on the list, it almost could have been really high on the list, is it kind of telegraphed a few things a little early that I picked up on. You may not. That spoiled it a little bit for me. However, I think if you just watch this one and be prepared to be creeped out, this one is subtle at times and not so subtle at others, and does a good job of sort of playing with the viewer. So much so that I'm kind of wishing I had put it higher up on the list. Before getting to my top 10, if you like this type of content, definitely click that subscribe button and be sure to click the bell icon so you get notifications when new videos like this go up, because YouTube is doing worse and worse about notifying you otherwise. My number 10 pick is What Lies Beneath, which is another PG-13 haunted house type of a movie, but far superior to The Haunting in my opinion, because it's much more subtle. Now this is one that a lot of people saw. Odds are you've probably seen it, but you may not remember how good this movie actually is. It stars Michelle Pfeiffer, Harrison Ford. Maybe the only horror movie Harrison Ford has ever done. Am I forgetting something? Anyway, very, very good. It is kind of long and slow, but it's really well crafted. We don't get really good horror movies like this very often. It could be scarier. Had they made it rated R, it could have been a little bit more intense. That would have made it all the better, and I think it definitely had the potential to be really great if it went in that direction. So it's actually kind of a shame, but that's why I've got it back at number 10. Now, one that I am super excited to tell you about is called Residue. Now, this is like some of my first picks. This is a low-budget movie. However, they went bananas with special effects in this one. This one has kind of a Lovecraftian type element, and for some reason it really doesn't make any sense. It's in the future, so the like detective in this story has like weird tech and stuff that, again, it doesn't look great. It doesn't look like something that belongs in the theater, but that's also kind of what's cool about it. Like, I enjoyed that sort of like grungy aspect to it, and he's kind of an over-the-top character, kind of a almost Sin City type of a character. So you got a Sin City vibe, a futuristic vibe, a Lovecraftian vibe. Like, what more could you possibly want in a movie? And just keep in mind, this is a small movie, but if you like the idea of those elements coming together, I had a lot of fun with this one. Ooh, okay, so I talked about this one on the podcast recently. Society is from the 80s. It is about a young man in Beverly Hills, and he starts to notice weird things going on with his parents, with his sister, with his therapist, with the local judge, just with the high society folk in Beverly Hills. And then he starts to learn of like sex cults and crazy weird things, start to see weird visions and things, very, very weird stuff, all leading up to a really disgusting, perverted, I don't want to say the word and ruin it, but whoa, this one was actually, I believe it was banned in Germany for a period of time, so that gives you an idea what you're getting into. You do have to wait for the bannable offenses in this one. They all sort of take place at the end, and there's some really dumb stuff in this movie. It's a dumb 80s movie with weird sex and weird body stuff, so just be prepared for that. If that sounds like you, this is going to be your top pick off of the list if you haven't already seen it. Another really dark one that involves sex and gore is Angel Heart. Now, this one's not a cheesy 80s movie or anything. It's actually pretty serious, and it stars Robert De Niro, Mickey Rourke, and it's a detective story. It takes place in New Orleans, so it's got that cool kind of vibe, but there's voodoo involved. Again, dark, satanic stuff happening. Very kind of similar to Society in a few ways, except much more realistic, much more dark, much more grim. And it's kind of not a horror movie. I think it loosely wedges itself into that genre, but still really great, a really great dark watch. If you've never seen it, it's one of the top picks off of the list for sure. Dead Snow 2 is a really great sequel to a great zombie movie. Dead Snow is about zombie Nazis. It's fun, it's funny. It's not like Shaun of the Dead. It's a little bit more of an action movie where there's a lot of stuff going on with the zombies. If you think, like, Shaun of the Dead is a better movie, but it's a little bit smaller in terms of its story. Dead Snow is maybe a lower budget movie, but it's much more epic in terms of its story and all the action that happens. And Dead Snow 2 is even more epic. Luckily, you really don't need to see the first one. I do think it's a little bit better, but you do not need to see it to enjoy Dead Snow 2. And I could not believe how epic Dead Snow 2 got towards the end. This one's a lot of fun. It is funny, but again, you also get that just crazy zombie action in it as well. This is probably one of the least scary ones on the list. It's not really scary at all, maybe a couple of jump scares, and that's about it. But a must-watch for horror fans. Even tepid horror fans are going to love this one. A Quiet Place is on Amazon Prime. That's right, one of the better movies from 2018. You can currently watch it on Amazon Prime. I'm not going to go into this one too much. I know this one had a huge audience. A lot of people saw it. I've done a full review. I've done a full analysis, everything on it. Talked about it on the podcast. By the way, did I say that I have a podcast? There's a link to that in the description. It's a separate channel. You got to go over there and click the subscribe button when you're done with this video. But A Quiet Place, another one that would have been better had it been rated R. There's some terrible stuff that happens in it. It would have been much more frightening if the violence in it were more visceral and intense. But that said, John Krasinski, Jim from The Office, directed it. It's his first time in the director's chair. I think he knocked it out of the park in terms of how he told this story. Whether you like the story or not, the way he pieced it together, I thought was brilliant. And I think we'll be seeing some more like this from him in the future. Ooh, okay, so top 4. We're getting to the really good ones. This is one I'm very excited to tell you about. From the Dark is easily the best hidden gem on this list. It's one I know a lot of people haven't seen. It involves a vampire-like creature, maybe, but it's about a couple who gets trapped in a cabin, and as long as they can stay in the light, kind of like Pitch Black, but at no point did I feel like it was ripping off Pitch Black. It plays out very, very differently. I kind of want to say it's a little slow getting in, but you're talking about maybe 15 minutes. You're not talking about a half hour before it starts to take off. And once it takes off, it continues to escalate in a really great way. Never really goes off the rails, but just continues to get better and better, in my opinion. And for a hidden gem that I knew nothing about when I first saw it a couple of years ago, I was absolutely surprised at how much I liked this movie. My number 3 pick is Hellraiser, Clive Barker's Hellraiser. I love Clive Barker. I wish we got more like it. The new Hellboy, I did a review on that as well. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Clive Barker. Didn't quite get there, but the Clive Barker monsters and creatures and the whole sort of universe that is unique to him is kind of similar to Lovecraft. I think I might like Lovecraft a little better because there's tentacles with Lovecraft stuff, but Clive Barker's great. Hellraiser is an absolute classic. There's a reason they've made so many of them. If you're watching this part of the video, if you're stayed with me this long and you've never seen Hellraiser, make it one of the first ones you watch off of this list. You will not regret it. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, is a movie that I've said recently was ahead of its time. In this one, instead of sort of running from a serial killer, you spend time with a serial killer. You see him do the things he does. It's not like it's first person point of view, but you're definitely in the passenger seat for this ride. It's a very unique perspective for a serial killer. Other people have done it. I've never seen anyone do it as good as Henry. I'm not going to tell you to watch it the way I did with Hellraiser. Hellraiser's dark. This one is going to make you squirm. This one is not going to really feel like entertainment, but it is so well done. It's a really, really great movie. It kind of makes me wish we got more like it, but at the same time, I don't know that there's a big audience for something like this. As good as it is, I'm just fair warning, this one is disturbing. And then finally, this will come as no surprise to people that have been following the channel for a while, but The Exorcist 3 is currently on the platform. I love recommending this movie, mainly because I know so many people have not seen it, because The Exorcist 2 sucks, and why would Exorcist 3 be any better? The reason it's better is because it's based on a book written by the author of the original book, and he also directed it. And it's basically kind of not a sequel to The Exorcist. I mean, in spirit it is, but it's more, I would akin this one more to Seven. It's more of a murder mystery in sort of a supernatural sense. There's some crazy murders similar to Seven. You spend most of the time with the detective. The detective is played by George C. Scott. You know him as Patton, most likely. He's great in it. There's some amazing scenes in it, including the one in the hallway. It's my favorite scene. And there is an exorcism in it. It's completely unnecessary, yet it still manages to not really ruin the movie. So my favorite pick off of this list, let me know 2 things in the comments. Oh, you couldn't see it. I did it like that. 2 things in the comments. Which movie are you most excited to watch off of this list, and which one that you've seen is your favorite off of this list? I guess a third thing would be, did I forget anything? Is there something that you really like that you wish I would have recommended? But I will be back again this week with Netflix horror recommendations and some additional movie reviews and some hidden gem horror movies that you can find all over the place, but you got to know where to look. Stay tuned for those videos later this week, but I will keep making episodes like this one as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking this one out, and you will see me on the next one. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so a number of ways. You can become a Patreon supporter like one of these fine people. You can like, comment, share, like I've said. There's also an Amazon link in the description down there. If you're going to do shopping on Amazon anyway, if you just follow that link, it actually gives a little bit of kickback from your purchase that you were going to make anyway to Flick Connection. Make sure I can literally keep these lights on, get better equipment, do more videos in the future so that you never run out of good movies to watch. But thanks again, especially everyone, but especially people that I know who you are. You watch all my videos. Thank you, and thank you if this is your first one and you watched all the way to the end. I've even signed off of this one and you're still there. Check out another one. There are tons of recent recommendations.